Today we're going to get a look at the top 5 kingdoms and Rise of Kingdoms, and the crazy thing is that it's easier than ever to actually name who they are, at least for the top 2. And then the next 3 are all in KVK with each other right now, so stick around in this video for a quick review of the top 5 kingdoms in Rise of Kingdoms. Hello my friends and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming, and today's video is sponsored by the makers of Rise of Kingdoms. And although I have my kingdom up in the background, I just have that there mostly to show you that recently I moved to 2268, and many people had been asking, hey, what's your power after troop return from KVK, and also all the hospitals being cleared. Looks like we're at about 14 billion power with 155 people in the alliance. Of course, that's not really why you're here today. You're here for the top 5. And unlike any other time where I've done this list, which I do this, by the way, like every 3 months, it has never been more clear, in my opinion, who is here. Oh, by the way, we are Imperium now. Very interesting, 2268. All right, so let's get a look at the ranks 3 through 5, and I don't know which is in which rank, quite frankly. I know which kingdoms I would say are in that 3 through 5 range. And by the way, this is not a list that Chisgule Gaming came up with on his own. This is a list that I sat down and brainstormed with Ruz to figure out, all right? So let's go get a look. I guess what I'm trying to say is if you don't like the list, go blame Ruz. Just kidding. JK, everybody, JK. So this is the KVK where many of these top 5 kingdoms are. And I'll just name 365, 2489, and 1846 are in that list, in my opinion, of 3 through 5. They're not number 1, not number 2, but they're in that 3 through 5 range. So let's first get a look at 489, all right? Now, 489 is a kingdom that has been growing a lot, and they moved recently to like a 1 to 1.5 alliance structure to make sort of a super powered alliance. I mean, look, the trend in this game is that kingdoms have to get smaller. It's not like an optional thing. It is a Imperium crush, an absolutely oppressive grind down on the power of each kingdom. It just is what it is. And you either grind down your power or you cannot bring in more people, and then you will guaranteed die. Now, 2489, as I mentioned, was just fighting, and they are currently looking at 16 billion power with 155 out of 169 people in this alliance. This is the 2489 main shell. This is run by Fa and Arvix, as I think the figureheads that you would know, but there are many other people, obviously, that help run this kingdom, and, you know, I won't go into all the details here, but what I will point out is that very recently, Baba was in this kingdom, but he has left 2489 to join another project. Now, that was an amicable departure. There's no negativity there. Everyone's parting on good terms, but I think it is worth calling out that Baba was here. He is no longer here. And I will point out that 2489 is a kingdom that, like, if you would ask me to sort of pull the trigger on, hey, Chisgule, like, where would you go if you had to go somewhere new today? I would be reaching out to Fa to have a conversation, say like, hey, dude, let's chat. And we have chatted several times. So anyways, 2489 is looking really, really strong these days as a 1 to 1.5 alliance kingdom, right? And if we look at how they're doing in KVK, we can go back to this screen, and they just had a Zone 5 fight. Now, I wanted to stream this fight, but I had some meetings that I needed to... I was actually very much looking forward to attending on this same day where this pass opening was happening, so I did a video that day that went live. But 2489 is battling against Mimi's kingdom. That's 1175. We can get a look at the map here and see how that's going. But spoiler alert, 2489 has pushed a lot of the zone. They've pushed all the way through here. They kind of locked up this area over here, and there's a wall of forts for 1175 that is giving them a little bit of a foothold in this zone still, but they are not really in this zone in a meaningful way. Now, I will point out, for what it's worth, that my restart account battled in this zone, in this Tides of War KVK, and we had gotten pushed back. We left the zone, actually, technically, and we ended up winning the KVK. So, like, just because you're out of this zone does not mean that you are winning necessarily or losing necessarily the KVK, all right? What matters a lot is what's happening on the other side. So this is a good segue to talk about the two other kingdoms that are in this list of the top 5 in that 3 to 5 rank. Again, in no particular order, because I couldn't tell you which one is 3, which one is 4, and which one is 5. And that includes 846 and 365. Now, the crazy thing is that when 365 and 846 were going to battle this KVK, I think people would have said that 365 was going to win. I mean, like, people thought that 365 allying with 2489 was just like way skewing the KVK in their favor. That's the way it was represented in social media. And I think, in this zone, we can see the reality is actually very different. It looks like 1846 and their allied kingdom have pushed 365 back to the starting zone, which is not what I was necessarily expecting based on all the things that people were saying in social media. All right. So it looks like 1846 has won this zone. Now, if you're not familiar with 1846, I've actually fought them in the past when they were at their peak strength and they were so strong they thought they could go both ways. Okay. That's a joke that will only be relevant to just like a small amount of my audience, but I appreciate you. Thanks for sticking with me. So 1846 is now being run by Raw Ability. It was being run by Laguna. My understanding is that he has quit. Now, I don't think it's the first time that he's quit and potentially come back, so maybe he will return. But if I had to guess from the outside what one of the staples of 1846 is, I would say that it is absolutely unquestionably Makote, the footballer who is the staple of this kingdom. It seems like most big kingdoms have a celebrity figure, and that celebrity figure helps drive their continued success. I mean, if you look at, for example, kingdoms throughout the history of this game, Death Squad was a figure for his kingdom. Then you've got Makote as a figure for 1846, all right? And these are like big whales that carry their kingdom. You've got Leopard for 1960. I mean, this list could go on and on. You've got Fa and Arvix for 2489 as an example. The overwhelming majority of these kingdoms have some big figurehead that is a staple of the kingdom. If Makote were to leave 1846, I think 1846 would very likely die. But for as long as Makote wants to keep playing here, with almost 400 million dead troops, I think people are going to keep playing with him, quite frankly. So 1846 is still in this list. And again, I think as long as Makote's here, and I'm not saying there aren't many other people that run the kingdom and make things smooth as can be for this group of people. What I'm saying is that a core figure really goes a long way, and the actions of that figure dramatically influence what happens next for the kingdom. And I'm gonna talk about that. But as long as the mindset of those most influential people is positive about the state of the kingdom, then generally the people within the kingdom will stick with it. Now, that said, we got to look at 365. 365 has the flagship alliance JST, and they have won Arc League in the past, as you've seen, and they are currently at 15 billion power. Now, remember, they just had some fighting. So normally I go through this list and I'm looking at the power and the kills of each of these alliances, but it's hard to say because there's lots of fighting and questions about the frequency of scans, and at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Like, the stats, unlike any other time in the history of the game, I feel like it's just quite clear that these are the kingdoms that are in the top. So 365 used to be a very, very, very large kingdom. Okay, they were one of the very few left in the game, along with 1093. And the only way that works is if you always grow, always grow, always grow, until we reached that threshold a year or two ago where growth stopped being possible for such large kingdoms. And now that that has happened, they have felt the Imperium crunch, and it has absolutely smashed down the size of their community to about 2, I believe, alliances. So the point I'm trying to make here is not a knock on this group. In fact, the opposite. I'm pointing out the intensity of the Imperium crush, that even this group, which was once one of a small number of elite exclusive, very, very large kingdoms, is no longer that designation. They are still in the top 5, but they only now have 2 alliances. And I can't even find the second alliance, which is kind of weird. Maybe they all went into this zone. I see JST. Oh, maybe it's JG. Is this where they are? 8.1.2 billion power. Where are they? Maybe they're spread across shells right now. It is Arc League, so it's also a little bit weird to try to look at power. But those are the kingdoms in 3 through 5. Now, the funny thing is that kingdom number 1 and kingdom number 2, I have never before been so confident to say that, hey, this is number 1, this is number 2, because they actually just fought. And their choices led to this designation. So at number 2 is 1960. Now, 1960 just lost to 1093. And it's no secret that that's what's happened. I was in that KVK, and it was pretty intense. And during that KVK, I repeatedly questioned the value of attacking my kingdom compared to saving for 1093. And it's funny, yesterday I showed in the video where 1093 had imprisoned me that actually we had some data about the end of KVK results. And if you actually look at that data, you realize that, like, the math doesn't lie. Like, yeah, actually it cost them a lot to fight us instead of putting more of that energy to 1093. Anyways, 1960 is a beast of a kingdom. Now, what's weird for 1960 is that although I wouldn't change their designation as number 2, they are going to be changing dramatically. Dramatically. Why is that? Well, their territory lead, as I understand, Kenny, left. He's quit the game. And also Leopard, who was their big personality. Not that there aren't other personalities in this alliance. There are. But Leopard left. And the extent to which Leopard was contributing this kingdom would be hard to overstate the value. I mean, he owned, I don't know, like something like a dozen of the whale accounts. Like, there was a lot he was doing to fund the continued success of this kingdom. Not that many other people weren't also doing many things, but it's going to be interesting to see how 1960 evolves after this KVK. They are 17 billion power after troop return, 153 out of 155 members currently in GT. So what will they become, and what they do next is really interesting. This is the first loss they've ever taken, so it's hard to know how they will respond to that. But I would assume it will be with commitment, and as long as they've still got players, for example, like Addy, who were, in my opinion, this is the MVP of that KVK, hands down. Yeah, I think they'll be all right. You know, I think they'll be just fine. Also, I had heard that Siwa was quitting, but I don't know if that's true or not. And I see Kenny's still listed as an officer here. So I don't know what's going on in this kingdom. We'll see what they end up doing. But it is clear who is number 1. And the number 1 kingdom recently imprisoned and exiled me. I'll have a card in the end screen for that one. And that's 1093. And 1093 is the only remaining large kingdom in the game. They're the only one. The literal only one in the game. You can't build this anymore. It's not possible. The only way to have done it is to have grown over many, 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 many years. And you can never have people leave. And any people that leave are gone forever because you cannot sufficiently drop Imperium, presumably, to get the kind of migration that would restore this kingdom to the size that it was at before. You just can't do it anymore. So if we zoom out here, I should have looked more closely. Is 1093 actually Imperium now? 1093 is Imperium, yeah. So I don't know if they've done their Imperium drop and had a migration or not. I don't know how possible it is for them because they just have so many alliances and so many players, and you can't do that anymore. The Imperium crush is too real. So with 126 members, they've got a 10 billion power alliance in the Lazy Lions. They've also got, if I can get it to load, the Scuff Tigers at 12 billion power, 132 members currently in there. Again, it is the start of Arc League, so it could be a little weird to try to look at the power here. Trash Pandas, 12.4 billion power. You just can't build a 3+ alliance kingdom anymore. It's just not sustainable at an Imperium level. All right, and then what is this? 93D, 10 billion power. So was that 4 alliances at about 10 bill? I just don't think you can do that anymore. I don't think it's possible. You had to have done that over many years. So this is now the elephant in the room, the group that everyone will be looking at to say, hey, if you actually can beat 93, you might actually be the best kingdom in the game. So big shout out to all the kingdoms on the list here. They're all super powerful, each with their own strengths and differentiation in the way that they operate and their histories. If that's the sort of thing you're interested in, consider subscribing. I've been covering a lot of these kingdoms for a while, and many of them have been on this list not month over month, but quarter over quarter. So if you like that sort of evolution, that's something I cover. You can expect it quarterly. And until next time, you have fun smashing the kingdom. Check that card in the end screen for my getting imprisoned and exiled by 1093. It literally cost me my honor.